Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon for some of the people because I have folks from different countries, so there may be a time difference. Today, we are going to discuss VMware vSphere 8, right? So that is our today's agenda. What we are going to learn? We are going to learn regarding vSphere and virtualization. That what is vSphere, what is virtualization technology, what is the benefits of virtualization technologies. So we are going to cover all these things today. Also, we will discuss how we can install VMware ES6i8 hypervisor and how we can configure it. That's also the agenda of today's session. Then we have another lab which is virtual machines, how we can create virtual machines. So there are different methods of deploying virtual machines. First, we will understand what is virtual machine, and then uh, we will uh, explain or we will discuss how we can deploy virtual machines on different methods. We can deploy it from the OVA or OVF template, or we can create a virtual machine from the scratch. Then the last topic will be vCenter server. So we will also discuss what is vCenter server and how we can manage our vSphere environment from vCenter server. So that's the topic, that's the agenda of today's lecture, right? This session will be 2 hours session, right? And you guys can stop me if you need a break of 5 minutes in between. So we can also take a 5 minutes break. Basically, I will try to explain all these things. That's not the complete training. It's basically a summary of VMware vSphere install, configured, and managed training, which is a 40 hours training actually, right? But I will try to explain, I will try to summarize this product. And even after this lecture, you will be able to build your own lab as well. That's the story. Normally, when I start the session, I ask people that who are you, where are you from, what is your current role, are you a student, uh, are you working somewhere, what's your job designation, what is your experience regarding VMware and virtualization technologies. But unfortunately, I'm showing almost 32 participants, so it's going to take a lot of time to do the introduction portion of all of you. So I'm sorry for that. I will skip the introduction portion and I will move into the next slide, which is regarding the data center physical infrastructure. For some of you, maybe it's a very high level thing, like I'm showing some of the students uh, from the first semester. So basically, uh, this topic will be a bit advanced topic for them, and for some of you it will be like uh, who has enabled something. I think what is this thing, who can see this transcript? Okay, leave it. So for some of you maybe it's a very basic thing, so uh, I will keep it very simple, right? And then I will move into the advanced level topics as well. So I have designed this webinar for beginners and also for professionals, and then we will see how we can uh, learn here today from this session. So before we start the lecture, do you know what is data center? Data center means server room, right? And you know, most of the organization nowadays, Their businesses relies on the applications, right? For example, you are in university. Let's suppose you have, uh, let's say there is a university, right? That university has LMS system. That university has a database, right? So they are going to install or host these applications somewhere. So definitely they are going to purchase a hardware, a server hardware. Then they are going to install operating system on that hardware, and then they will install the application on the hardware. That's the physical data center architecture. In data center, there will be a storage devices as well, storage appliances. So if you don't know what are storage technologies, just forget it. Just ignore these things. But this is how the data center physical infrastructure looks like. So this diagram is before virtualization technology. What is the disadvantages or limitation of this diagram? So basically, let's say we have a hardware having 64 GB of RAM, for example, and we have installed server 2019. I hope every one of you will be familiar of server 2019. If not, you can search for server 2019. And let's say we have a file services running here, file server. So maybe the average utilization of this machine is only 8 GB RAM. That is also possible. Let's take example of your own laptop. For example, you have 16 GB of the laptop, and the normal utilization of that laptop is only 4 GB RAM. But still, you cannot remove the remaining RAM from your hardware, from your laptop, because sometime you have to run some of the heavy application on your laptop, which is why you need more RAM. So same is the case here. When organization are looking for a server hardware, they will uh, purchase a server hardware based on the peak hours. Do you know peak hours? Can someone tell me the example of peak hours?
Like peak peak hours. What do you say?
Mhm,
Peak hours.
mhm,
Yeah, peak hours. We can I can understand like hours where the server is solicited is more solicited. Like the server have a large of requests
mm,
where the requests are more than more for the server.
yep,
Like that's what I understand about peak.
yep, you are right. Can someone tell me the example of peak hours in universities? What are the peak periods of universities?
Okay,
Admission.
got it.
9
But it
a.m.
can be from when the university gets started
Exactly,
till end.
admission time. Yep, you are right. And
Yes.
maybe result time. Students are looking for the results.
Some sometime yeah.
Exactly. So
Yes.
people will
Yes.
be requesting to the servers, right? So for that peak hours, you need more resources, right? So which is why you purchase a server hardware with 64 GB of RAM. But since I have also done my MS research in this technology, so I was reading a research paper and I saw there that the average utilization of the data center is resources is 15% to 25% only. That's the average utilization. So Before I move to next slide, let me ask you something. Is there anyone who is currently working in production environment? Any volunteer?
Actually, I have worked, but
Yes,
currently I am okay. Yes, anybody who is can work.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
yes, yes.
Okay, Mr. What's your good name? I think it's a very uh, complicated name. It's hard for me to pronounce your name, but okay. Is my voice clear to all of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. So, uh, okay, go ahead. What is your current job role, Mr. Papa?
Okay. I am a engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I am system engineer. So my job is to administer Windows and Linux system. For Windows, I work in Active Directory.
Mm-hmm.
I work also on virtualization.
Mm-hmm.
So I work on virtualization. Like I used to create some virtual machines
So,
in other environment.
mm-hmm.
I also work on cloud parts.
Mm-hmm.
Like I also work on Linux systems,
Mm-hmm.
and I also manage Exchange Online, like for email server, Microsoft email server on the cloud. So
So,
like for a summary, that is my work. Yeah.
okay. Is it okay for you if you just tell us that how many physical hardware do you have in your environment? Are you
So
comfortable?
many I don't.
Hmm. I mean,
Uh,
how many servers? Okay, which server are you guys using? I mean, which vendor servers? Dell servers, HPE.
yeah, we have many. We have Dell, we have HPE, we have Huawei also, Huawei servers also.
Okay, so so you are using VMware technologies, right?
Yes, we have VMware Technology 5, VMware 5.5. It's an old VMware version.
You are using the very old technology, Mr. Papa.
Very old, yes.
It's
Yes,
not
very old.
it's not good actually. Okay,
Yes.
so Mr. Jibamani. I think Jibamani is my old student, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So any other system administrator or any other professional here in my class who is currently working in the production environment?
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is Hariom from Mitsubishi Power India.
Okay.
Yeah, we are working with VMware 7.02.
Okay. So how many ESXi hosts do you have?
XI, we are having three.
Okay. So you have three ESXi hosts and you have virtualized them. So basically, thank you, Haryan. Thank you for joining the session. Uh,
I have invited my two team members. So maybe he is about to join.
okay. Thank you so much. Welcome to them as well.
Okay, this time it's a very short notice. I,
No, actually, I scheduled this session, I think, 2 weeks before, but I don't know why you just get to know.
on WhatsApp I was there, but it last 1 hour before I got it, and just 15 minutes before I seen that. That's why.
Okay, okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you for
Yeah,
suggestion.
thank you for joining the session in a very short period of time.
Yeah, thank
So, this is the physical data center overview. Normally, this is how the physical data center looks like. There will be compute, there will be storage, right? The network, the IP storages. This is how the physical data center looks like. What is our goal
Hmm.
actually? Let me mute you all because I'm showing some background noise. You can unmute yourself if you have any question. Okay. So uh, let's move to next slide. What is virtual infrastructure? What are we going to learn today? Basically, we are going to learn how we can virtualize our server hardware using virtualization technology, VMware virtualization technology. So in virtualization technology, what we do basically, we install hypervisor directly on the hardware and then we create virtual machine. For example, your companies has to run 10 applications. So before virtualization technology, you need 10 different hardwares and then you are going to install those 10 applications. But in virtualization technology, you can install hypervisor on top of the hardware and then you can create multiple virtual machine. In this diagram, you can see we have three virtual machines each running on the hardware, on a single hardware. So we have four hardware and we have total 12 virtual machines. So on the four hardwares I'm running 12 different applications or virtual machine. So that's the beauty of virtualization technology. That's the benefit of virtualization technology, that you can reduce the number of server hardware. So this way you can save electricity, you can save the physical, the hardware cost, right? You can also save the place. You have to keep the server somewhere. When you power on the server, you also need to keep them 24 by 7 on. And definitely they will be generating some heat. So you are also need some cooling system to to stable the temperature of your data center, right? So before virtualization, there were some challenges like uh, actually the hardware resources are not utilizing that much. We can optimize the hardware resources with virtualization technology. Maybe for some of you, this is a very high level thing now, but we have other basic topics coming up, so just stay with me. So before I move to next slide, any question in this slide or the two slides which we discuss? So is my voice clear? Let me confirm it again.
Yes, yes, voice is clear and
Yes,
no
circle
question.
clear.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let me move forward with my introduction. Basically, my name is Kashif Ali, and I'm basically the Insight Solution Architect at VMware. I'm working for VMware uh, in a VMware partner company. I'm also a VMware vExpert 2021 and 2022. It's because of the knowledge sharing thing, because I share the VMware knowledge to different communities online, and I also visit different universities and I deliver sessions there and I educate students regarding VMware technologies. I'm also VMware certified professional data center virtualization and I have done certification in digital workspace one, and I'm also a VMware certified master specialist digital workspace one 2022. And I have done many VTSPs and VCPs in VMware as well. And I did not mention that because of the limited space. I'm doing PhD currently in computer science. I have done BS in computer science and then I have done MS in computer sciences. And a part of this, I'm also delivering some VMware and Microsoft trainings with some wireless technologies, and I can also deliver trainings on Fortinet firewalls and all these things. And I have done some other certification as well, like CCNA, MCSC, some Citrix certification, some Microsoft Azure certification I have done, right? And I'm also learning cloud technologies with a part of my VMware career. I'm also the research community member, and this is my hobbies, what I love actually. Uh, I would love to hear from you guys as well regarding your introduction, but since you guys are uh, 41, so it will be hard for me. So let's move to the main topic of today. This is our main agenda. What we are going to learn today. What is vSphere? vSphere is basically the virtualization platform that includes two core administrative components for running virtual machines. If someone asks you what is vSphere, so you can answer them that this is a suite just like Microsoft Office. And this suites include two products. One is called ES6i, another is called vCenter Server. So vSphere is the combination of ES6i and vCenter Server, right? This is the product of VMware. So if you do not know VMware, basically VMware is a company. Just like Microsoft is a company, Cisco is a company, Red Hat, Oracle is a company, Apple is a company. So VMware is also a company, software company. Their headquarters is in USA. You can visit their website and you will see the different products of VMware, right? So vSphere is basically the virtualization platform, and these are the two products. And you can see here when what is vCenter Server? vCenter Server is the management piece. For example, you have three different ESXi host hardware, right? And they are virtualized. Let me access my lab. For example, you have this ESXi host. You have two ESXi hosts. One is this one, another is this one. So you will be managing them individually. How we can manage them, I will show you. Do not confuse. I will explain all these things. So let's say you have a big environment and you have multiple ESXi hosts. So how you are going to manage them? vCenter is the central administration platform. So you can, this is a dashboard. When you logged into vCenter server, right? You will see all of your environment and you can manage them from a single dashboard. That's the story. What are the main features of vSphere, right? So let's discuss uh, Dell. Who is Dell? Is my voice clear? I think my voice is not clear to you. Okay, let me restart my internet. Okay, no worries, no worries. I think someone is downloading.
Kashif ji,
hmm
hello.
Yes, please. Yes, I can hear you. Hariom.
Hello.
Yep.
Uh,
Uh, Let me restart my internet. Give me 2 minutes, please. Okay, thank you. Hey, welcome back. So let's talk about some of the features of vSphere. Uh, First, we understand that what is vSphere. It is the combination of two products. One is called ESXi and the other one is called vCenter Server. So why we are learning this technology? Because we have these features available. What is vSphere vMotion? Let's discuss this. For example, you have application running here. This is a complete virtual machine. Virtual machine means a computer, a virtual computer. And let's say you got some problem here on this hardware. So in this technology, we have a capability that we can move this machine from this hardware to this hardware. And let me just show you live. You can see here, this is a dummy environment, right? You can see I have two ESXi hosts, two hardwares, and I have this Windows 10 virtual machine. This Windows 10 virtual machine is running here on this host. This virtual machine is running here. This is one hardware and this one is another hardware. So I can move a powered on virtual machine from one hardware to another hardware. Like you can see here, I am just moving this virtual machine like this. And you can see Windows 10 is moving. And you can also note here that after some time this will become 1. And now you can see. So this is a feature. So this is one of the feature we will be going to discuss and learn here. So this is one feature. Like we can move a powered on virtual machine from one hardware to another hardware. This is the one feature in this technology. So if you have three ESXi hosts, I think Mr. Jibamani or someone else mentioned that he has three ESXi hosts, three hardwares. So if you have three ESXi hosts and you have some virtual machines running on one hardware, so you can move those virtual machine from one hardware to another even if the hardware is on, even if the virtual machine is powered on. You can also do vSphere storage vMotion. What is storage vMotion? For example, you have this hardware and you have disk 1, right? And also you have disk 2 and your virtual machine is running data is stored on disk 1. So you can also change the storage of a powered on virtual machine. And let me just show you here. You can see we have this Windows 10 virtual machine, or let me just show you this tiny Linux virtual machine. This is a computer. When I expand this, I can see this machine data is stored on this data store, right? DS iSCSI01. This is a disk. So I can change the storage of this virtual machine. I can migrate the storage. So this is another feature of vSphere technology, right? Another feature we have is template. What is template? Let's suppose you have to create 10 virtual machines, right? And you have to install Windows 10 on those 10 virtual machines. And then you have to install MS Office on those 10 virtual machines. So how much time it will take? Definitely it will take a lot of time because you will create one virtual machine and then you will install Windows 10 and then after that you will install MS Office, right? And you will repeat the same thing 10 times. So in virtualization technology and vSphere, you can create a template. You can do the configuration once. You can create a template and from that template you can deploy multiple virtual machines. So template is like a master copy from which you can deploy multiple virtual machine, right? That's also our lab. It's not included here, but that's also possible in vSphere virtualization technology. We have snapshot feature, we have alarm, we have high availability feature. That's a very good feature. For example, you have three ESXi hosts, three hardware. One hardware is failed, so high availability will restart these affected virtual machines on the remaining host, right? That's the benefit of high availability. For example, you have three hardware and one of the hardware goes down. Is it possible that the workload which were running on the affected hardware is still available? No, it's not available. But in virtualization technology, especially in VMware vSphere, we can use vSphere high availability feature, and we can make those virtual machine available even if you are not in the office, right? Automatically your workload will be available on the remaining host. FT is also one of the high availability feature. We have distributed resource scheduler feature, right? What is DRS feature? DRS is basically uh, DRS distribute the virtual machines among different ESXi hosts to balance the workload. So let's go back to the,
Hello.
yes, please.
Okay, when you talk about HA and DRS,
Mhm.
when you talk about HA and DRS, we also talk about cluster, right?
Cluster,
Yes, cluster. Yeah,
yeah,
it's because of the clusters that are able to, like the VMs are able to restart automatically during when the physical hardware is gone. It's
okay,
also a cluster which allows us to do a distributed resource of VMs along the ATX side. Can you just give about the cluster, how
okay.
it works? Yeah.
Okay, let me mute you because there is a background noise. Basically, thank you for uh, sharing your thoughts. Actually, you are right. vSphere, HA, FT, DRS, these features are basically a cluster level feature, right? But since this is not a proper training, this is just a quick high level overview of the product. So, which is why I just uh, missed to mention the cluster as well, right? But yes, you are right. For vSphere HA and DRS, you need to have a cluster. What is cluster? We will discuss it if we get some time. So the reason I'm making it very simple because I have some students, they are very beginner. Mr. Hazrat Umar, basically FT is fault tolerance. When you enable FT, what happens actually? Uh, when you enable FT, for example, here and also here, and you have virtual machine running here, this is, for example, a primary VM. So a copy of this virtual machine will be also running here, a shadow copy. So if something happens to this hardware, the shadow copy will become a primary. The secondary VM will become a primary. So FT is like a advanced level of high availability. In high availability, there will be some downtime, but in FT, you do not have a downtime. So before we move into the practical lab, what we are going to learn today, let's talk about hypervisor. Let me open a Paint document, and because I'm a graphical
Excuse me, sir.
person, yeah, please.
FT take more resources.
Yeah, it's a technical question. Let me answer you. Uh, Basically, for example, you have a hardware 1 and you have a hardware 2. and you have to run a virtual machine. And let's suppose this virtual machine is utilization is 4 GB RAM, right? So when you enable FT for this virtual machine, what will happen? A copy of this VM will be also created on the other host. In the resources which you are using here, the same resources will be utilizing here as well. So for FT, you need double resources. So
So is there any limitation for CPU?
yes, you are right. Basically, uh, we have different level of licenses. We have vSphere standard license, and we have vSphere Enterprise Plus license. We have other licenses as well, but FT is only available in vSphere Standard and Enterprise Plus, so which is why I just mentioned these. So I believe in vSphere Standard there is a limitation of 2 CPU or 4 CPU, I believe. But in vSphere Enterprise Plus, I think it's 10 CPUs.
I think, but 10 CPU concept is nowhere in VMware. It's rather in 2, 4, 8, or 16 kind, right?
No, no, I mentioned 8 actually.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Okay. So let's say if we have 32 vCPU running on active machine, and will it get created the same replica on another node
No, no,
with
because
CPU?
because FT has a limitation of maximum 8 CPUs.
Okay.
Yeah, but uh, I think 4 CPUs are also enough if you are working in the production environment. But
If we are running any
yeah,
uh,
heavy
so
workload, yes,
yes, so FT, I think it's required for very critical machine which does not should not have any downtime, right?
exactly.
So it might be a SAP machine, SQL machine, any heavy utilized. But what is the use if we are not able to use maximum more than 8 CPU? Because critical machines and heavy load machines can be of 32 vCPU, 64
Yeah.
CPUs, right?
So, we have other solution as well. Like you can go for VMware Cloud on AWS solution. You can use SRM feature. You can use vSphere replication. So that's like
Mhm.
a marketing game or something like that. Like if you have that much critical environment, then you have other options also available.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
Good.
Does it answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what is the schedule of this training, or can we write an exam? Yes, Adil, Mr. Adil Ahmed, you can connect with me after this session. And because I will be starting my new batch from 11th February, maybe not 11th February, maybe 12th February, but next week I'm going to start a proper training from the zero to professional level. So you can connect with me. So in FTF, the second hardware also fails, then what happens, Mr. Dinesh? Okay. Let's say uh, you have this hardware and you have your primary virtual machine running here, right? And a secondary VM is running here. So when this hardware fails, this secondary VM will become primary, and on the third host, a secondary VM will be created. Does it answer your question, Mr. Danish?
Yes, sir, absolutely. This
Perfect.
was my doubt actually. Yeah. So it should there should not be any downtime. You said like in banks and all, it should never be like 30 seconds. Also is a big amount
Mm,
that might
yes,
affect.
yes.
So that's why I was asking if second hardware fails, then okay, immediately it goes to third one. Understood, sir.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay,
And
Kash, I
and
have one question.
on which
So
basis it
this,
will take any next hole?
Sorry.
I mean, if secondary becomes primary, then on what basis it will take another node? I mean, whether it is random pick any node or in the cluster or what?
Okay, that's a good question. Actually, during when we are configuring FT, we already specify all those things.
Okay.
Yep. And Mr. Adil, regarding training, you can definitely connect with me for both official and non-official training. I will guide you.
Uh,
Okay.
sir, sir, one more
Uh,
question.
Yep, yep. Please
The
ask.
first primary was hardware got some problem, so it got secondary, second one, that's okay. So I will rectify my first one. Then what happens?
You mean that uh,
The,
the
yes,
first?
the first one. I'll take 1 hour. I'll rectify it. Whatever the problem is there. After that, what happens?
Okay. So you have options. I mean, if you want to move the primary VM into this one, you can move it manually, and you can also specify some rules on DRS features as well. You can configure DRS affinity rules, and you can configure DRS the way that I want the primary VM to be always available here if this hardware is available. So
Okay.
we do have some options available. I mean, there are configuration available.
So, sir, as I understood, DRS is there, high availability is there, and fault tolerance is there, right?
Yep.
So all the three we are not going to apply, right? Based on our condition, our company, we will apply any one, right?
No, 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 no. Basically, DRS is, DRS is a completely separate solution. Like it balances the workload of the environment. For example, you have three ESXi hosts, and on this host you have 10 virtual machines running. And here you have two VMs running, and here you have three VMs running. So is it a good practice that 10 virtual machine is running here? It's not. Definitely, as an administrator, you will move some of the virtual machine to the remaining two hosts to balance the workload. So
Right.
also this is a very difficult thing that look, you have to do the mathematics manually, and you will calculate the workload, and you will also calculate the available resources on the remaining host. So when you enable DRS feature, automatically the it will balance the workload actually, right?
Mm, right.
That's the story of DRS. What is high availability and what is FT? Basically, in high availability, when the hardware fails, the these affected virtual machine will be restarted. So definitely there will be some downtime.
So so if our vCenter goes down, DRS will work or not?
Sorry.
So if our vCenter got down, right,
Mhm.
and then our DRS will work in that condition or not?
Okay, you that's also a very technical question. Basically, uh, when you enable high availability, and even for some
Hmm.
reason your vCenter is not working, still some of the feature will still work, but you will lost the management console.
Yeah, that's fine. But I'm asking particularly about the DRS. Will it work or not?
Let me confirm it. Give me just 1 minute, please. And I will.
Okay.
Yep, yep, yep. And that's someone. I never.
Well,
Yep.
yeah,
And
I have a
and one more thing, I have seen that in vCenter 7 version there are VCLS files, VCLS VMs, right? I hope
Yep.
you have seen that.
Exactly.
So what
That's
is
a
the exact
cluster.
role?
When you create a cluster, so unfortunately, we will not be able to explain those things here. but
Okay.
you can connect with me after the session. And also, it's a part of the module number 9 actually. When you start the module number 9, so you are right. The the virtual machine which created when we create a cluster and when we add host to the cluster. So yes, after vSphere 7.
Mhm.
Yep, yep. I think.
Because if those VCLS does not work properly, then DRS will also get affected
Mm,
because it does not balance the load properly. So those machines has to be in running mode.
okay, I
But
think
I am not getting exact for those
so.
things.
You can ping me, and I can definitely share some of the documentation with you.
Okay.
Yep.
Sir, you were just
So,
explaining about high availability.
Hmm.
You said ki the servers will restart, so definitely it will have a downtime, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so it is not so reliable. So next is DRS, which balances the load, and
So okay, the limitation which HA has, it can FT can cover those things.
yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
but
Under,
FT
yeah.
is FT is also not good for every virtual machine. For example, if you are enabling FT for all the virtual machines, so definitely first is it's not possible because there is some limitation of FT when you are configuring it. And the second thing is uh, you need double resources like even
Correct.
the secondary. So I cannot tell you where to use HA and where to use FT because it's you who will be deciding this because you have more visibility into your environment. Like which VMs are critical, which application are critical. So based on those requirements and applications, then you will decide. Uh,
Right, sir. Understood. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
I have one word about this,
mhm,
my friend. For example, about what Kasif told also,
mhm,
it depends on the criticality of your production VMs. For
exactly.
example, as Kasif said, I agree with him. Maybe, for example, to avoid some downtimes, generally in production, if you have a critical application, you create two instances of the application. One is running in one A6 site and two separate A6 sites.
Okay.
For best practice, you separate the A6 site where they are. So if one A6 site is down, the second application takes the lead, even if the VM restart, you are not facing
Okay. Thank you.
it. Yeah.
Uh, Let me move forward and I will answer some of the question after some time. And one more thing, I think someone asked me, who was, what's your good name? Who asked me regarding the DRS feature if vCenter is not working?
Yeah, this is Gaurav.
Okay, Gaurav. I just checked and seems like it's not possible. So DRS will not work because moving the VMs between hosts is a vCenter function. So DRS is,
But I believe that VCLS VMs are doing this in vCenter 7.
yeah, so I
Mm,
will have to uh, research on that more because I have never looked into that, and
okay.
hopefully I will share something with you as well. But
Okay.
thank you for asking that question. So let's make it simple, guys. What are we going to learn today? For some of you, it is very a basic thing, but for some of the audience, this will be like a new thing. So normally, what we do when you have a hardware, let's say you have a laptop or desktop or any other hardware, so you install operating system like Windows 10, Windows 11, whatever you are installing. So what are you going to learn today? We are going to install ESXi hypervisor on the hardware. It is also a type of operating system, right? It's, you can say it's a operating system. So we are going to install ESXi hypervisor, which is a VMware product, right? So that is also our lab actually, that how you can install it, how you can create virtual machines, how they can communicate with each other, how you install operating system on the virtual machines, right? How you can make those virtual machines or your ESXi host member of Active Directory and all these things. So we are going to learn that. So let's focus on here. So if someone asks you what is hypervisor, you can answer them. A hypervisor is a computer software or hardware that enables you to host multiple VMs. Each machine is able to run its own programs, like you can see here. And we have two types of hypervisor. One is type 1 hypervisor, which you can directly install on the hardware. And the other one, maybe you guys are familiar, VMware Workstation, VMware Fusion, Oracle VirtualBox, right? Parallel. Here you can also write Hyper-V, Citrix, but I did not mention in this slide because uh, we are explaining the VMware technology, so which is why it's not good to mention other products. So you Hyper-V, Citrix hypervisor, these are also type 1 hypervisor. So that's the a quick high-level overview of hypervisor. You can read more about hypervisor and you will see a lot of other things as well. Like in details, you will get to know the behavior of Citrix and Hyper-V. Uh, so if you want to learn more, you can also search ESXi versus Hyper-V versus Citrix architecture, and you will uh, learn more about the three different hypervisors, right? So before I move into next slide, I will pause for a while and let me see. I think there is some question from Mr. Uh, okay, Adil. I will take care of your uh, uh, training and examination requirement. You can connect with me. That's fine. Okay, Mr. Gal, will you talk about the difference between V7 and V8? Uh, that's not in my today's agenda, but uh, I can share uh, some of the documentation, like what's new in vSphere 8, and then you can read about that. And the same answer for you, Mr. Adil. Uh, there are some changes. There are some new topics added to vSphere 8 training, like vSphere Plus. They also added vSphere distributed switch, which was not included in vSphere 7 training. So with vSphere 8 training, now you will also learn the vSphere distributed switch, right? Yes, I will also upload this recording to my YouTube channel as well. All right. So in vSAN VxRail, the HA downtime is less than NFS storage. Yeah, that's also, it depends on the configuration. You can also reduce the downtime when you properly configure uh, the uh, high availability. Danish, I'm going to show you what I'm doing now, what I have to do today. So just give me some time. Let's discuss ESXi. So ESXi is basically a bare metal hypervisor that is licensed as a part of vSphere. And you can also download a free version of ESXi as well. So if you have a single hardware, you can download a free version of ESXi and you can use it without any cost. But if you are managing this ESXi host from vCenter server, then obviously you will have to pay for it. So I'm not going to discuss the license edition and how vSphere licensing works, but that's the summary that ES6i is a bare metal hypervisor that is licensed as a part of vSphere. Installation requirement, supported server platform, at least 2 CPU cores, 8 GB of physical RAM, 12 GB for a production environment, 1 or more gigabit or faster Ethernet controllers, and at least 32 GB of persistent storage required. You can also install it on the SSD and flash disk. Back in the days, there was they also VMware also mentioned that you can also install hypervisor on USB stick as well. But in vSphere 8, there is no option of USB. And why is that? There is some reason because of uh, the partition architecture and also some other factors. So unfortunately, I'm not able to explain it right now, and this because of the limited time. But you can uh, Google it as well. Like you can search for it that why VMware remove the USB installation in vSphere 8. So this is my first lab. So I'm going to start from lab number one, that how you can install the ESXi and how you can configure it. So the first thing you need a hardware. If you are going to install hypervisor, you need a hardware, and the hardware must be with 2 GB of RAM, 8 GB of RAM. You can also install it on 4 GB as well. I have installed it and it was working perfectly. We need 2 cores CPU and 1 Gbps of NIC network adapter. Right. You can also use it 100 Mbps as well, but if you in future if you want to use vMotion feature, that's not gonna work with 100 Mbps because for vMotion you need at least 250 Mbps of bandwidth. You need 32 GB of storage for installation, and then if you want to store the virtual machine data on the same the local disk, then obviously you need some local storage or shared storage. So we will try to explain those things as well. That's the requirement. Now Mr. Danish asked me that how can we install hypervisor directly without installing OS. So you need a hardware, right? A bare metal hardware. So if you do not have a bare metal hardware, so you need to install uh, this hypervisor on the laptop. So it's also not possible because when you install hypervisor on the hardware, uh, it will delete the current partition of your disk and it will create a disk of VMFS. I'm going to explain it here. Uh, Danish, I'm coming to your question and Mr. Kamran. Basically, uh, when you install hypervisor here, ESXi, you can run multiple virtual machines. So because we are uh, using virtualization technology, so obviously uh, without hypervisor virtualization technology is not possible. So if you are doing,
Hello,
mhm,
Kasif.
mhm,
But for example, for testing purpose, as the question of the for testing purpose, if I have if I have a hardware,
mhm,
can I install VMware workstation, for example, on a physical hardware?
mhm,
Like I have Windows Server OS, I install VMware workstation. Shall
mhm.
I be able to install also VMware A6i? I create one virtual machine and I upload the ISO image of A6i and install it. Is it possible?
Uh, it is possible, but if you are asking for production environment, it's not recommended in production
Yeah,
environment. In
yeah.
production
For
environment,
testing purpose, I
okay,
mean, for
okay.
testing for test beds. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you are going to make a lab for you,
A
uh,
lab, yeah, for me, for example, yeah.
let me write here home lab, home lab. So if you want to practice this, uh, if you have a hardware, right, you can install, and if you have Windows 10 installed on the hardware, right, for example, and you can simply install VMware Workstation here, right, and you can create a virtual machine here on top of the VMware Workstation, and then you can install ES6i for practice purpose. So just assume
Yes,
that this is your hardware and you are going to learn this one, right? And then on
yes,
top
yes,
of
yes.
this, you can create virtual machines and you can do that. That's the one method.
Okay, thanks. Good.
Another method you can use, that is, uh, let's say you have a server hardware, right? And you can install hypervisor directly here, ES6i hypervisor, and then you can create multiple virtual machines and you can create multiple ES6i host here. This is just for a home lab. You can deploy the vCenter server appliance. You can deploy the domain controller. You can also deploy the virtual SAN appliance and you can do all the lab practice of this training. Because for this proper training, we need a minimum 3 ES6i host, one vCenter server, one domain controller, right? NTP server. We also need shared storage, right? Management PC. Then you can learn this proper product. I mean, then you can learn VMware vSphere 8. And the training name is install, configure, and manage, right? So you can build the lab on this hardware as well if you have minimum 32 GB RAM or 64 GB RAM. 32 GB RAM is also enough, but I would recommend 64 GB RAM, and then you can build your lab and you can do all the labs. Like you can see here, I have my home lab. I have a single hardware. This is this one, right? This is my server hardware, and I have installed hypervisor directly on this hardware. You can see here, right? This is the old hardware, HP Proliant DL360G6. It has two sockets, 6 cores per socket, but hyper threading is available, which is why I'm showing 24 cores. And I have almost 83.99 GB of RAM, and I have almost 803.25 GB of storage. And what I did actually, I created virtual machines here on top of this, and I have installed hypervisor, and I'm using it for my home lab purposes. So let's start with the basic lab. Our first lab is installation of ES6i hypervisor, right? This is our lab. Uh, one of the student asked me that why we are installing this product, why we installing ES6i in hardware instead of Windows 10, because we have to run multiple virtual machines here, right? So you need to install hypervisor, and we are basically discussing the production environment here. So definitely you will have a server hardware and then you will have to this one. Yes, I'm recording this session, Mr. Bug Hunter, and I will upload it uh, to my YouTube channel. No worries. You can also ask for the slides and I will share these slides as well. And I will also share some of the documentation as well. So you need a hardware. The first step, arrange a hardware, right? So if you do not have a hardware and you want to do practice on that, right? You can, so Infinix, please. Gal, are you leaving? Mr. GAL. Okay. So normally in production environment, you will have a server hardware and then on top of this hardware you will install ES6i hypervisor. But if you are doing it in your home lab, right, then what you need, okay, Khushal, we will discuss that. Let's focus on this one first. So for your home lab, what you can do, you can uh, use this method, right? You need this one. This is for home lab. You can create a VM and then you can install hypervisor. One more thing before I start the installation on my own lab, let me show you something. Basically, uh, there is a platform which is called VMware HOL, right? So you can visit this link. You can write VMware HOL, right? Once you open this site, it will ask you to log in. You can create a free account. It will not ask you for any payment. You can click catalog and you can filter the product, which product you want to learn. You want to learn VMware vSphere product. You can select vSphere only. And there are total 28 labs available only for vSphere product. And my favorite lab is for beginner. I would recommend Virtualization 101. Do you see 101, guys? Virtualization 101 is my favorite lab, which I will recommend for all of you. I'm not showing that, but I can write it here. So once you write virtualization 101, you can start this lab. So once you start this lab, I already started this lab. So this is the lab, right? You can follow the instructions here, like you can click next, you can click next, you can read about what is virtualization. There will be some slides as well, like pictures, right? Uh, we will discuss it. Lightning Lab is just a light lab, like 30 minutes lab. It will just give you a high level overview. You will not get more knowledge. But if you want to learn more, I would recommend this Virtualization 101. You can start this. You can make your note.
And we can And we can also extend the lap timing, right?
Exactly. I think 9 times you can
Okay.
extend it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just show you. Before installing the hypervisor actually on my hardware, so you guys can also do practice on this, right? Lab guidance. Please verify that, right? And you can click ES6i hands-on installation simulation. Okay, is my voice clear now or is it bad? I don't know why my internet is too slow today. Okay, you can see here. You can follow the instruction of installation. So this VMware HOL, especially virtualization 101 lab, will explain all the installation methods as well, right? So I do not have a hardware, for example, and I want to see how the hypervisor is installed on the hardware. So this is the proper place for all of you. It's a free. You just need an internet connection and you just need to uh, give some time, right? Okay, Danish, you have a good question. Give me some time. After some time, I will answer your question. So let me start the lab. So what I have planned for you guys to show you actually, as you can see here, I have a hardware available here. I can show you the hardware. This is my laptop and I have installed VMware Workstation. So I hope that will not be the case for your class, but if the VMware Workstation is also new for you, so I have uploaded my lectures of VMware Workstation as well to the YouTube channel. You can watch those lectures and you will get to know what is this product, how you can install it, how you can configure the network portion, like what is net, bridge, host only, and all these things. I have already explained it. So what I'm going to do now on the VMware workstation, I will create a virtual machine, right? So you can assume this virtual machine is a hardware, and then I will show you how you can install the ES6i hypervisor. So the installation method is same whether you are installing on the virtual machine for testing, yeah, training purpose, or you are installing it on the production environment. So the first method, the first step, the first requirement is you need to identify your hardware. Let's suppose you have a Dell server, Dell, PowerEdge, ABC, whatever product you have. First, you need to visit VMware site, VMware compatibility matrix. And then when you open this uh, website, you need to check the compatibility of your server hardware, whether that hardware supports vSphere 8 product or not. You know, let me tell you interesting things. The hardware which I have, it can only support ES6i 6.7, but I was able to install ES6i 7.0 and also I was able to install ES6i 8.0. How? So let me tell you the trick. This trick is not recommended in production environment, but in a home lab or training lab you can do that. I would suggest to read this article, right? And this article can basically uh, help you that how you can install ES6i latest version on a non-compatible hardware. So this is not recommended in the production environment, but this is something you can do it on with your home labs and all these things. So allow unsupported CPUs when installing or upgrading ES6i. This is not officially supported by VMware and you run the risk of having more issues in future. But still, you can use this option as well. So first you need to identify this, that if your server hardware support this or not. Then download ES6i ISO image, right? So option number one, customized ISO from vendor side or download ISO from VMware side. What is the difference between these two options? The best practice is if you have a Dell server, you need to download customized ISO from Dell website for ES6i 8.0. Why? Maybe you have some hardware, right? And you need some patches and updates for those hardwares in future. Maybe that's not available in the generic ISO. Then you will have to manually deploy it or install those patches. So it's like a difficult task if you have multiple ES6i hosts. So the best practice is to download the customized ISO from HPE, from Dell, from any other vendor if you have like this. So you can write simple, let's say you have a Dell server or you have a HPE server. So you can write ESXi 8.0 customized ISO for HPE Proliant DL360 G6 and it will redirect you to the HPE site and you will have to download it. So you can see here I have used HPE custom ISO file, right? And I download it here on this hardware. If you are doing a home lab practice, like if you have to create a virtual machine on the VMware workstation, then it's fine. You can use this ISO as well.
Kashif, one question.
Mhm,
Okay, for your home lab, your own server,
mhm.
what kind of storage do you use? Local storage
Okay.
for your
Uh,
virtual machines?
okay. Uh, you can use a local storage, yes, but if you have to use a vMotion feature, if you have to use high availability feature, DRS feature, obviously you need shared storage. So what you can do, you can install Starwind software, you can install OpenFiler software, you can install FreeNAS software just to create a virtual SAN for your home lab and you can perform all the labs on that. So actually,
Okay, could
yep,
you install a virtual machine which is playing the role of storage, right? Shared storage,
exactly. So let me just
like
show you.
OpenFiler. Can you
Yeah.
just list? Yeah.
So unfortunately, I will not be able to cover that portion here, but I will see if I can share a video lecture with you. So this is, you can see here, this is one of my batch number 29 batch. So I have configured this VM for that. So this is my Starwind lab. I have installed Starwind software. It has a server 2019 install and then on top of that, I have installed Starwind software. But I believe I have a video lecture available on my YouTube channel for OpenFiler. If not, you can reach out to me and I will uh, guide you how you can do that. Right? So you can download the custom,
Okay, thank you.
no problem. You can download. So let's suppose I'm going to download ES6i8 ISO. Simply write this. You can visit this site. Do not ask me to share the ISO file with you. That's your homework. You have to create account in VMware, right? It's a free. You can download a free trial for 60 days. You will get access for 60 days, I believe. And then you can download all the products, right? And you can also download a free version of uh, ESXi. Okay, some students ask me like how they can find a free licenses. So, you know, there is a program called VMUG. You should search for it. You can join this community, or you can apply for vExpert. So what is vExpert? Like, I'm sharing my knowledge with you. You can also share your knowledge with your community, and you can claim that. You can uh, submit application to VMware. They will review your application, and once they approve your application, then you will become vExpert. And once you become vExpert, there will be a portal where for 1 year you will get access to all the licenses, and you can download it, and you can build your lab, and you can share your knowledge, and you can provide trainings. There are other trainings also available, some other benefits of vExpert also available. So this is another method, right?
So for this, you need to write the VXpert exam, right? You need
No,
to
no,
be
no,
a
no, no.
VMware VXpert.
vExpert has no exam. It has just a criteria. Okay, I think,
Criteria.
yeah. So students are waiting for the installation portion. So let me start with the installation. Let me create a virtual machine first. So if you are doing practice, right? So I already download the hypervisor ISO. Let me just show you. This is the ISO file which I downloaded from the VMware site, VMware 8.0, right? I'm going to create a virtual machine on my VMware workstation. So just assume that this is our hardware, right? So what are these options? I'm not going to explain it because it's already available on my VMware workstation lecture. So you can go and watch it. I just selected this one. I'm going to give it a name ES6i8. How much CPU? 2 is okay. How much RAM? 4 GB is fine. Where you want to connect it? Bridge, net, host only. Do not ask me what is the difference between these. It's already explained in my VMware workstation lecture, so you can watch that. What are these controllers? Go and watch it. 40 GB, for example, I'm using 40 GB disk for installation, and this is my virtual machine. This is the hardware. Like you can see, it is considered this a hardware. It has 40 GB of disk, 4 GB of RAM, 2 CPU, 1 network adapter. Let me add another disk as well. You can also do the same if you are building your lab. And let me add 142 GB hard disk more. I can remove the USB controller. Why I remove it? Just to show you that if you do not need any hardware, you can simply remove it, and uh, in, it will give you a good performance of the VM, because if you have limited resources, right? So this is the hardware. So just consider that you have purchased a hardware in the market, and that hardware has 4 GB RAM, 2 CPUs, 2 disk, one for ESXi installation, another for virtual machine, uh, virtual machine files, right? And you have one network adapter, and I'm going to attach the ISO file. So you can attach the ISO file like this. You can browse it, and you can search for the location where your ISO file is downloaded, and you can do that. For example, this hardware does not support ESXi 8.0, and this hardware only supports 6.7. So again, it's not possible. But as I told you that there is a trick available, so let me perform that trick for you as well. When you start installation, Shift O, press Shift plus O. That is the method. Let me just show you. You can simply hold Shift plus O, and it will pause the installation process, and it will give you this mode. This mode. You can write a command. What is the command? Allow legacy CPU is equal to true, right? And let me share the documentation with you. Where is that document? I believe here, not here. What is this one? Okay, never mind. And you can hit enter, and this is the installation process is started. So if you have a supported hardware, you do not need to do this, right? And it is not recommended in production environment. Okay, perfect, perfect. Thank you, TMP. So we just started the installation, right? So during the installation, you can ask me question because you have the opportunity to ask me question now. And I'm sorry if I did not answer all of the questions. So there could be two reasons if I missed to answer your questions. Reason one, I don't know anything. And reason two, it's because of the limitation of the time. So, so the installation is started. I can close some of the tabs because my laptop is making so much noise, and I hope it will not affect my machine. Let me see the CPU performance. Okay, my RAM utilization is 6.7. Okay, I still have 1.1 GB RAM available, so hopefully I will do the installation step here, and then I will move to my lab actually, and then I will show you the actual hardware, the how you can create virtual machines. So just for you people, I'm just doing this so that you can prepare your own lab as well, and at least you get to know how you can install this product and how you can uh, perform the basic things. You can also share your inputs if you have anything to share. Technically, we have uh, 20 minutes left, but I can stay if you want to stay, and we can finish all the topics which I mentioned in the start.
No, sir, carry on.
Okay, so have you told us in uni how to install vCenter through Windows Server? So the vCenter, the Windows-based vCenter is now a history, Mr. Khushal. We do not use VMware does not give you an option of Windows-based vCenter anymore. It was old story back in 5.5 and 6.5 and 6.7, but in vSphere 7 and vSphere 8, you do not have that option available. vCenter is different thing. We have a topic of vCenter, Mr. Khushal. I will explain it. Okay, guys, you can see here. Welcome to the VMware installation. You can go to the compatibility side, and that's it. You can hit enter to continue, and I am sure you will read this end user license agreement. Okay. Now this portion it shows that the hardware you have it has two disks. One is 40 GB, the other one is 142, right? So we are going to use the 40 GB disk for ESXi installation and the remaining disk just for a home lab purpose. We will use this for virtual machine data. In production environment, the ESXi host will be connected to the shared storage, right? Or vSAN or traditional SAN, right? You can select the keyboard layout based on your uh, location. There is a default username which is root, so you can set a password for that root username. You can also log in to your ESXi host using Active Directory users. We will discuss that, and this is how you can install
Yeah.
the this one. Uh, Mr. Dev, promiscuous mode is something we will discuss in module number 5. That is uh, the virtual switch security policies actually. So I'm sorry, I would not be explain this in this session, but you can definitely reach out to me on WhatsApp and we can discuss it. Abdul Alim, I'm planning in March for network virtualization. Khushal, I will try to answer your question here. Muhammad Ali Khan, uh, download and sir, you did not. So we will discuss the Ali Khan. I will share the video recording and you can watch the VMware workstation thing. Mr. Danish, I will answer your question of how many VMs can be installed. So that's a very good question. I will explain it. So let me explain what we did so far. So far, what we have learned that how we can install ESXi hypervisor on the hardware. That's what we did actually, right? This hardware is connected to your physical switch, right? Just assume that, right? Physical switch. The hardware we have, it has, for example, 64 GB of RAM. Just assume that. Let's say it has 16 cores, CPU. Let's say it has 1 TB of disk. Uh, let's say it has 128 GB SSD and 1 TB HDD and 1 Gbps of network adapter. Let's assume this. When you install ESXi hypervisor on the 128 GB disk, right, it will format, it will create a partition of a root directory, and uh, it will format this disk in VMFS file system. And you can also add this disk is a VMFS data store. What is VMFS? We will discuss this in module number 6 actually. But this is a virtual machine file system. Just like when you install Windows operating system on your laptop, right, on hardware. So the disk will be formatted in NTFS file system, FAT32, right? Yes, we can change it. We can change the login methods, Abdul Alim. That is possible, right? So let's see where the installation is here. We have a question from Mr. Danish that how many virtual machines can we run on a single hardware? So the simple answer is it depends, right? It depends on your which application you will be running on the virtual machines. But for a normal virtual machines, the formula is if you have 16 cores, let's say, so 16 cores are enough for 32 virtual machines. So one physical core can be uh, are able to run two virtual machines. That's just a formula. It's not a recommended formula, but uh, I have learned this from one of my uh, server experts. So that's just a generic thing, right? But again, it depends on your workload. So in case Mr. Kundan has a question, in case I have a 4 GB RAM in my actual system and I need 8 GB RAM for any virtual machine installation, it can be possible? No, it's not. It cannot be possible. Uh, I was planning to skip this portion, but I feel like I should also discuss that. While doing the installation thing, let me explain some of the basic thing. For example, you have 64 GB of RAM, right? And you have to run some virtual machines here. Let's say you have this VM. You have to run another virtual machine as well, right? You have another virtual machine. You have another virtual machines, and you have to assign 24 GB RAM here, VRAM. So every virtual machine has VRAM, vCPU, vDisk, vNIC. We will discuss that. So 24 GB RAM here, 24 GB RAM here, 24 GB RAM here, and also here. Is it possible to assign 24 GB RAM to each virtual machine if you have 64 GB RAM? Yes, it is possible. How is it possible? Let's say you have this virtual machine and you have configured this virtual machine with 24 GB of RAM, but the utilization of this virtual machine is only 12 GB, right? So the hypervisor uses different techniques. One of the technique is called memory ballooning. We will discuss this memory ballooning in details once we start module number 8 or 7. So it will take the 12 GB RAM back from the virtual machine, and the remaining 12 GB RAM can be utilized for the other virtual machine as well. So this is which is I mean this is not a good practice that you should configure your environment like this, but just for a training or learning purpose, that's yes, it is possible. Maybe you have a question in your mind that suppose each of the virtual machine needs 100% of the RAM utilization. So how is it possible that you can uh, give the 100 GB RAM, 100% RAM to each RAM, to each virtual machine, because you have only 64 GB RAM physically available, but the need of the virtual machine is more than 64 GB RAM. So again, there are some techniques like transparent paging, memory compression, memory ballooning, but the end goal is that you should upgrade your physical RAM, or you should move some of the virtual machine from this host, right? And definitely, I mean, there is also a virtual memory option available like swapping and paging. So that's a deep thing. It would not be possible to explain it, but yes, we do have different methods or techniques available. Same is the case for 16 cores. Let's suppose you have physical 16 cores available. So maximum you can assign 16 vCPUs to a virtual machine, not more than 16. Because physically you have only 16 cores available. And yeah, okay, it's also possible that you can assign 16 vCPU to this virtual machine, 16 to this one, 16 to this one, and 16 to this one. How is it possible? Because maybe the utilization of this VM is only 2 cores. So again, the remaining RAM will CPU will be with the hypervisor, and hypervisor can assign the free resources to other virtual machine if they need it. There are reservation and all these things available. We are not going to touch it right now, but that's the story. And one of my favorite product that is called vRealize operations. You can read about this one. Now it is called area operations. Area operation product. Then the new name is VMware Area, ARIA. It's a monitoring tool. We deploy this tool in our environment and we connect this product with the vCenter server and we can pull reports. And we have some other product which can automate your environment as well. For example, you are out of office and you have configured this VM with 24 GB of RAM, but this host does not have 24 GB RAM available, or maybe this host cannot give the resources to this one. So you have some features available that will move the virtual machine to the host which has a good resources available, enough resources available, right? Okay, I'm coming to your point, Mr. Danish. Thank you for asking this question. The third thing we can discuss. Normally, uh, if I ask you to connect five physical machine with each other, you need a physical switch and then you need uh, Ethernet cable, twisted pair cable, and you can connect your physical machine like this. You can assign IP address and you are good to go, right? You can use it. This one, you can, right? How virtual machine can communicate with each other. So let me explain it. Basically, when you install ESXi on the hardware, it will create by default automatically vSwitch 0 will be created, and that is called virtual switch. vSphere standard virtual. Why I write standard virtual switch? Because we have another type of switch that is called distributed virtual switch. vSphere distributed switch. Standard virtual switch. So let me expand this virtual switch here. For example, this is a virtual switch. Basically, a virtual switch consists of two ports, two port group. One is called virtual machine port group, right? And the other one is called VM kernel port group, right? This is the virtual switch. And the third component of virtual switch is this port, which we call it uplink. Uplink is basically a port which connect your virtual switch to the physical switch. So basically, I just expand this virtual switch here to explain it with you. What is the role of virtual machine port group? Keep in mind that every virtual machine has a VNIC, and you can assign maximum 10 virtual NIC, right? And those VNIC, virtual network adapter, will be connected to your virtual machine port group. So let's say you have a virtual machine here. This is your virtual machine, and you have a VNIC here. This will be connected here, right? Same is the case here with another VM. So all the virtual machine will be connected here. What is the role of uh, VM kernel port group? So basically VM kernel port group, I can also expand it here. When you need the management IP address is assigned to VM kernel port group, you can use VM kernel port group for vMotion traffic, for vSAN, for those services which required IP based communication, right? So if you are communicating with your ESXi host, actually you are communicating with the VM kernel port group, and you can create more virtual switches. You can create more virtual machine port group. You can create more VM kernel port groups. So all these things will be discussed in module number 5, which is a proper uh, uh, topics we have on that. Standard virtual switch versus distributed virtual switch. So the reason I explain these things so that I can show you that if someone asks you, or maybe if you have a question in your mind that how virtual machine can communicate with each other. Because one of my student asked me that, okay, it's fine. 64 GB RAM will be shared. 16 cores will be shared. How about network adapter? How about IP address? How the single IP address will be shared among virtual machine? I said, no, it's not like that. The physical adapter will be attached to the virtual switch, and each virtual machine has its own virtual NIC. It will be connected to virtual machine port group, and then if they have to communicate with each other, they will use this port group, and if they have to communicate with the physical machine, they will use the uplink, and then they can communicate with these machines. Does it make sense, guys?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes,
Perfect.
sir.
Now let's discuss the storage portion, right? I was not expecting that uh, the audience will be experienced persons. I thought that I will just install the hypervisor and I will create VMs and I will say, hey, this is how you can virtualize things. But since you asked me questions, so I have to explain it now. Uh, Normally, let's discuss the physical machine. For example, you have a Dell hardware, or maybe if you have a laptop, for example, and you have 100 GB of disk, and you have to install Windows 10 on this hardware, right? So what you do basically, you create partitions like C drive, D drive, right? E drive, and then you format those partitions in NTFS file system, and then you store the data. But if you have a hardware, let's say, right, and you have 1 GB, sorry, 100 GB of disk, and when you install ES6i hypervisor on top of this, right, so this disk will be formatted in VMFS file system. And if you have to create a virtual machine, so when you create a virtual machine, each virtual machine has its own virtual disk, and the file of that virtual disk is VMDK, and that file will be stored in the virtual machine folder, and the file name, the format will be VMDK. So when you have to install Windows 10 on top of this virtual machine, right? This Windows 10 is not going to install on the physical disk, but it will be installed on the virtual disk. So it will format the VMDK file. The virtual disk is an NTFS file system, right? So for hypervisor, every virtual disk will be a VMDK file. You can run a Linux operating system as well, right? The Linux VM will have its own virtual disk, and the Linux virtual disk will be formatted in ext4, right? For a hypervisor, it will be just a VMDK file. So now, basically, virtual disk, if someone asks you what is virtual disk, so virtual disk types, let's discuss this. We have thin provision of virtual disk. One is called thin provision, and the other virtual disk is called thick provision, right? What is the difference between these two? Uh, let's say your virtual machine disk is thin provision, and the virtual disk, let's suppose you have this virtual machine and you have assigned 50 GB, right? But this is thin provision, and 10 GB data is stored. So on the physical disk, the VMFS data store, the VMDK size file will be only 10 GB because the disk type is thin provision. But in thick provision, the story is different. Let's say you have a virtual machine and the virtual disk size is, for example, 20 GB, and you have 2 GB data is stored, but the VMDK file size will be 20 GB on the physical disk, right? So during creation of virtual machine, you will get these options, thick provision and thin provision. Now the story is how this virtual machine, how a virtual machine with thick provision will take all the 20 GB data from the ESXi, because the hypervisor nature is to only assign those resources which are usable by the virtual machine, and only 2 GB data is used. How the remaining 18 GB data will be assigned to the virtual machine? That's also a question. So let me explain it. When you select thick provision disk for a virtual machine, and for example, this is a 20 GB disk and this is a 2 GB data, right? This is a 2 GB data. How much space is left? 18 GB. So in thick provision, the disk will be filled with zeros, and the hypervisor will think that this is not zeros, these are basically data. So the disk will be filled with zeros. Zeros means it means for the hypervisor it will be like a data. So which is why the 20 GB space will be minus from the physical disk. So when you are storing data in the virtual machine in future, the zeros will be replaced with data, right? Thick provision has two types. One is called eagerly zeroed and lazily zeroed. We will discuss this sometime, but you can search for it. Because when I was taking the exam back in December 2014, so there was a question that what is the difference between easily thick provision and lazily thick provision? You can search for it, right? And if during the lectures we will inshallah discuss it as well. Perfect. So I hope I explained it very well. Now let's come to the installation portion. The installation is almost completed. Once the installation is completed, you need to remove the installation media and you are good to go. One more thing, let me explain it. Basically, uh, if you have a Dell hardware, do you know Dell iDrake or HPE ILO? Anyone? Any idea regarding these two things? If
Uh, ILO, I know about ILO. ILO is a management board
yeah,
on which you can connect directly to the hardware, and you can even provision operating system installation. I think ADRAC is also like ILO, right? Hello,
yes, I can hear you.
can you hear me? I
Yep, I can
said
hear you.
ILO is a management board
Hmm.
from which you can remotely access to the, you can directly interact with the physical hardware,
Yep,
or if it is configured on a network switch, you can remotely access also to the server hardware.
yep, you are right. So even let's say, where are you from, Mr. Papa? Uh, where are you
I
from?
am from I am from Senegal, West
Okay,
Africa,
okay, you are from
Senegal. Yeah.
Senegal. Let's say you are in Senegal and you have a server hardware and you want me to install ESXi hypervisor from here, then I will ask you to give me iDRAC access or ILO access so that I can remotely access your server hardware and I can remotely install hypervisor on your hardware.
Okay, good.
Okay, that's the story. And we do not need any VMware tools, Mr. Khushal. What is VMware tool? We are going to discuss it. Okay, guys. So once you install the hypervisor, right, on the hardware, you will see this interface, right? That is called DCUI, Direct Console User Interface. So with direct console user interface, you can configure the IP address, the basic configuration, you can enable or disable SSH and all these things, right? So let's do this one. So hit F2 and use the same password which you set during installation, right? Uh, you can configure the management network. You can look for the network adapters, how many network adapters you have. You can configure VLAN. You can configure it from here, and also you can configure it through browser. IPv4, let me make it static. Let's say 171. You can enable or disable IP version 6. You can configure DNS and all these time. You can set a host name, and once you are good, you can just the host will be restarted. So what we did actually, uh, we configured the ESXi host, the basic configuration. So that was the hardware, right? We install ESXi hypervisor, and now the machine is ready so that we can create virtual machine on top of this, right? How to access this hardware? So
There is go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
okay, so basically back in the days there was a software for used for ESXi 5.5. Currently we have ESXi 8. When I started learning VMware, it was vSphere 5.5, right? In 2014 actually. So vSphere 5.5 client. There was a software which we used for managing our ES6i host. Maybe you guys are familiar with this one, right? That was the software which need to be installed on your Windows machine, and then we would use this software to access our vSphere 5.5 environment. But now the story is different. You can simply open a browser, any browser. You can open it on your mobile phone, Mac operating system, Windows machines, Linux machine. What is the IP of this machine? 171. So you can simply write HTTPS and you can write your hypervisor IP address and you can simply hit enter. I think it's 18.171 because my IP range is 192.168, 18.171, and see you can access your hypervisor. Okay, oops, it's not available yet. Let's wait for a while. So that's the story. The service is not available yet, so let's wait for a while because this is my home lab, a VMware workstation environment. So you can do that like this, right? And the machine is ready, right? This is your ESXi 8.0 host. This is the interface, right? So I will power off this machine now and I will access my other lab because I have uh, my laptop is making noise. So let me move to my other lab. So I already deployed another machine 171 here. I will just log into that machine, right? So this is my ESXi host. which I just installed it, right? You can review the configurations from here. You can set the time. The time is not okay. So the time is very important, you know. You need to, you can use NTP server and you can synchronize time between all of your environment, right? Once you do that, this is your environment. You can see the host view, right? You can click manage and you can see different options here. You can assign license from here. By default, there is a license. It's a trial-based license. You will get it for 90 days, I believe, or 60 days. And if you have to assign license, you can assign it from here. You can go to services tab and you can enable or disable SSH service. By default, SSH is stopped. You can start it and you can log into your host using Putty software or any other tool. You can go to security and users uh, tab and authentication. You can make it the member of domain, right? And you can then set some permission. You can also create another user locally. So we do not do these things here because what if you have 10 ESXi host and you have to do it on the 10 host individually, it's a difficult task. So the best practice is to add this ESXi host to your vCenter server and try managing your host from vCenter server. What is vCenter server? We will discuss it. Give me just 10 minutes and I will conclude the lecture. Uh, as you can see here, I have a data store available here. Before your lecture, I already created a data store. In your case, you can click new data store and you can add your data store because it will not be visible in your case. So you can add it from here. What is data store? All these things we will discuss in module number 6 actually. Now let's create virtual machine. Why we virtualize our hardware? So we can run multiple virtual machine. So what is virtual machine? Virtual machine is basically a computer resource that uses software instead of a physical computer. The virtual machine includes the following components. Just like your physical machine, you have operating system. Virtual machine has also operating system. Just like in physical machine, you install drivers for mouse performance, for sound card, for graphics. Here we have VMware tools. In physical machine, you have CPU, memory, network adapters. In virtual machine, we also have vCPU, VRAM, VNIC, vDisk, vGPUs. And you can see here, this is one of my lab, another host, and I have some virtual machine already created here. So just to give you uh, an overview, you can see I have how much virtual machine, how many virtual machine, 13 virtual machines. And I have this domain controller virtual machine here. And you can see here it has Windows Server 2019 installed. It has 4 GB of RAM, 90 GB of disk, 2 vCPUs. I can log into this Windows 10 2019 virtual machine, right? It has the same operating system is like your uh, physical machine has operating system. An interesting thing is your operating system does not feel any difference whether it's installed on the physical machine or virtual machine, right? And you can see here In vSphere 8, you can assign up to 24 TB of RAM to a single virtual machine if you have 24 TB RAM available on your physical machine. What if you have a hardware with 16 GB of RAM? Can you create a virtual machine with 24 GB of RAM? No, you can only create up to 16 GB. But what if your hardware has 24 TB of RAM? You can assign maximum 24 TB RAM to a single virtual machine. But it also depends on the operating system as well, right? You also need to check if the operating system support 24 TB or not. Now you will think that is it possible that we can assign 24 TB RAM to operating system? Yes, you can check server 2019 maximum RAM support. How much? 24 TB maximum RAM support. Okay, what is Windows 10 maximum RAM support? It's only 2 TB, right?
Can you check for Windows 2000? Windows Server 2008, for example.
Okay, yes, server
Windows Server 2008 R2.
standard edition. It has only,
Yeah,
I know it
I
has,
think
it,
now normally 32, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
I know that. And I have a good story for that. You know, one of,
32. Yeah,
yeah, yep,
yeah. Thank you.
yep. So it also different. So that's the story, right? You can see this one. And now let's create a virtual machine. How you can create virtual machine? Option number A, you can create a virtual machine from the start, or you can deploy virtual appliance. For example, I'm not a database guy and I want to deploy a database virtual machine. So first I need to install operating system and then I will install SQL Server, but I do not know how to install it. So you can download SQL Server virtual appliance for ESXi, right? And you will find some appliance and you can download it. You can directly run it. You can do the basic configuration and you are good to go. Is there anyone who has a Cisco knowledge or Cisco responsibility?
Yes, Kashif, I have.
Okay. Do you know Cisco CSR?
Yes, the router.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. So Cisco CSR. So you can download the Cisco CSR virtual appliance and you can deploy it on your ESXi host as a virtual machine. And you can run that virtual machine as your Cisco CSR. Do you know about Fortinet firewall, ASA firewall, Checkpoint, Palo Alto, SonicWall? You can also deploy it, right? So even if your background is from networking, even if your net background is from security, network security, and if you are a system administrator, the VMware vSphere is a good uh, path for you. I mean, a good skills for you. You should learn this technology because moving forward, people are moving to virtualization and cloud technologies, right? So let's do a demo, a little bit demo, that how you can create a virtual machine. We have three options. Option number one, no, it doesn't require Khushal. You can create a virtual machine, right? Just forget these two options for now. Just skip it. Just ignore it. Now, you can give it a name. For example, I'm going to install VM01-Windows 10. Now that's the story. Compatibility. What does it mean actually? When you select ESXi 8.0 compatibility for this virtual machine, it means that this virtual machine will be only compatible with ESXi 8.0. For example, you have three ESXi hosts in your environment, and one of the ESXi host has 7.0 version. Then you will not be able to run this machine here. But if there is a requirement for you that maybe in future you need to move this VM to the 7.0 host, then you can select 7.0 version virtual machine hardware for this virtual machine, but maybe there will be no feature available which is only available in ESXi 8.0 virtual machine. Guest operating system family. Definitely I'm going to select Windows. Okay, some people say, okay, let's do not care about it. Just select whatever operating system you can and that's fine. No, it will not, it should not be like that. You need to select a proper Windows, proper guest operating system family, and also you need to select which OS you want to install. Let's say I'm going to install Windows 10 32-bit. If you are installing Windows 11, you should select Windows 11, right? And you can select next, and then you can select the data store on which the virtual machine folder will be created, and all the virtual machine files will be available under that uh, folder. You can click next, and here you can select the CPU, the memory, the disk, and you can expand the disk and you can see thin provision, thick provision, eagerly or lazily. Let's say I'm going to select thin, obviously, right? You can expand RAM, you can select network adapter, and we have different types of network adapter. I did not discuss because of the time issue, but you can search for it that what is the difference between VMXNet 3, SRIOV, right? And then you can click next and finish. So this is how you can create virtual machine from the scratch. But this virtual machine does not have any operating system yet. So if you have to install operating system, you can install it from the network. You can attach the DVD on to your physical disk, or you can simply browse your data store and you can create a folder just like I already created, and then you can upload the ISO file of the Windows 10 or any other operating system which you are going to install in future. You can upload the ISO images like this. Once you do that, then you can attach that ISO file into your virtual machine like this, right? You can connect the ISO file. I'm sorry if I'm moving fast, but it's because of the time availability. And you can simply power on this virtual machine. And if you have to work on this virtual machine, you have different options available. You can open a browser console, which is this one. And if you have VMware Workstation installed on your management PC, or there is another tool which is called VMware Remote Console, you can also download that tool and you can uh, use it for virtual machine console. and maybe you can use RDP in future always also. And if you have a Linux machine, you can already also SSH to your Linux machines. Depends, right? And this is how you can do that. So let's start the installation, and then we will talk about VMware tools, and we will talk about a little bit regarding vCenter server, and that would be uh, the end of the session. Okay, I can see the number are reducing, the participant numbers, because I know. What about template creation? That's the topic of vCenter server, Mr. TMP. So I did not included this topic in this session. Maybe in my other session, I will include the advanced level topics in my upcoming webinar. But I hope you guys learned something new today. Perfect. TMP, where are you from actually? And what's your good name? Thank you, Danish. Okay, so during the installation, we can talk about some of the this option. And basically, installation of VMware tools. This is like you are installing the drivers, right? And thank you, Daniel. And what is deploying VMs from templates? So I hope I have already a template available here somewhere. Maybe. Okay, I do not have this. Let me see if I can find. Thank you. And who is your mentor? Can we know? Daniel, we need to know your mentor so I can thanks him. Okay, good, good, good. That's good. Okay, guys. So I'm sorry I have to skip this portion because of the time limitation. But anytime you can reach out to me on my email address, on my Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, right? And I will try to make myself available for you guys. So let me stop recording, and I'm still here for 5 minutes.